Welcome back, and thank you so much for staying with the South African Morning. Now, as we look into the agricultural sector, few smallholder farmers are resilient to drought. And this is according to research by Yonas Bahta, an associate professor at the University of the Free State. Now, he's found that only 9% of smallholder livestock farmers were resilient to agricultural drought. And this includes farmers who receive some assistance from government. Let's bring in Prof now to discuss the implications of his research. Good morning to you, Prof. Always a pleasure to have you. Let's just give a definition of smallholder farmers. These are not necessarily small subsistent farmers. These are farmers that also sell their produce. Give us a definition. Good morning.
Yeah, when you call the smallholder farmers, farmers have below or 1 hectare land size.
Okay, but their farming, what is the purpose of their produce? It's not necessarily to feed their family, immediate communities. It's also for commercial purposes. Is that correct?
Yeah, mostly they produce for themselves. Sometimes also they have a chance to produce commercially, but difficult to say they reach commercial level at a substance level.
And this would leave them vulnerable to the elements, particularly when it comes to drought. They would not have the necessary resources or network to mitigate the impacts of drought and climate change. What are the implications of your research?
Yeah, the implication of research, if the farmers are vulnerable and no resilience, it suffers and not produce a lot, and it will be a burden for government. So the government have a lot of policy intervention, such as drought relief, but that drought relief in some extent increase their resilience. However, it's not good enough to retain their status before the shock. So the government should encourage to develop social capital, economic capital, and human capital. Especially when you say social capital, the government should strengthen the already existing social network and build social network. Besides that, also the human capital is very important. Especially the government should help them to improve their farm management skills. Is very crucial to improve their resilience.
Yes, and we know that, you know, as a country that is quite well entrenched, or rather having the agricultural sector anchor the economy as well, let alone with food security, what are the benchmarks that we can learn from international best practices in the support of smallholder farmers that South Africa has not yet implemented?
Yeah, there is a lot of policy in South Africa, intervention policy to help the farmers, but the support should come on time. And we should not wait also until the government or the local national departments to declare a disaster area. So at early stage, we're supposed to support the farmers before it's declared, and need to follow up from time to time and build on consequently. If you give them relief one time, and if you don't follow them, it will be a recurrent drought and difficult to resolve. So the drought relief and others should come on time, and there will be a continuous support on social, economic, and human capital aspect.
Yes, we'll come to the skills development and how farmers can perhaps also draw from the ecosystem, especially if you're a smallholder farmer. Are there outreach programs perhaps with larger, more established farmers? But before we go there, the elements that they're actually facing are way beyond just the climate change in itself. It's also including price hikes and also pest and disease outbreaks, Prof. So there's quite a number of moving targets that the smallholder farmers had to contend with.
Yes, you are right, because as we indicate, the main thing is resource. Smallholder farmers, they lack resource. So currently also this Ukraine and Russia war also increase the burden of smallholder farmers. So there is a lot of things coming from time. There's a lot of shocks. So we must reduce their vulnerability, and we must increase their resilience. So that's the main reason I said the government need to follow up, because these shocks, as you mentioned, macroeconomic policies such as inflation, you mentioned also price hike and other shocks. So these shocks never stop, and it will continue from time to time. So we're supposed to build a social capital mainly, especially by increasing the social network and building with the existing one, and also economic vulnerability also very important. So we must increase the base of economic, social, and human capital base of for smallholder farmers. If you make these ones as a base, I think we'll challenge any shortcoming in the future.
And we value the importance of research and yours, in this case in point, particularly in helping to preempt and better prepare. Forewarned is prepared rather, and so you can mitigate some of the impacts of the drought and other elements as well. What are the statistics when looking at smallholder farmers that are living under dire conditions in need of government aid?
Yes, our study focused on Northern Cape province of South Africa, and we specifically focused on Francois municipality. Around 8,638 smallholder farmers registered to get assistance, and we made research using sample randoming formula. Around 207 farmers we interviewed, and all this research focus on 207 farmers.
Yeah, and their plight obviously would be that they want to be competitive, productive, and also make sure that they're able to sustain not only themselves, the communities and the customers that they serve as well. But Prof, thanks indeed for your time. Really appreciate having a chat with you this morning. We're speaking to Professor Yonas Bahta. He's the Associate Professor at the University of the Free State.